My name is Dale Hitt. I'm the founder of Aviate AI. And Aviate AI is a business community where we bring together innovators to transform them into video AI business heroes. And this community really came about from my decades in Silicon Valley working with Intel, Xilinx, and NVIDIA and startups in Silicon Valley doing strategic market development for AI. And had many challenges in dealing with the environment where hundreds of millions of dollars are invested monthly in developing these technologies, and it's very accelerating change and dynamic. And I felt what I learned should be shared with other innovators that are coming behind me to develop in this environment. And that was the nucleus of the Aviate community. And now we have developed to a point where we have a 5-stage path for members to develop into AI business heroes. And we really are focused on helping all of our members with that task of using AI to scale their business. So if you're interested in that, using visual AI in your business, I encourage you to join. It's free, and well, we have a great group there to help you out. So get started. I'd like to introduce you to Anand Joshi, who's our leader today, and he's the principal analyst at Tractica, which is now renamed to Omdia. And his focus is on computer vision and AI. And I've known Anand for a long time and been using his market research in my work at Intel and Xilinx and a bunch of other Silicon Valley companies. So I'm very familiar, and he's been instrumental in providing good direction on how the ecosystem, good deep knowledge on the ecosystem under AI and computer vision. So I'm excited to introduce you to him. And Anand, why don't you take over the slide share, and we'll
sure.
Go from there.
Thanks for the introduction, Dale. And hopefully everybody is able to see my screen. And so when Dell and I were discussing yesterday, we thought, we should conduct a poll in the beginning and ask how many are actually using computer vision. And it's good to see almost everybody, well, less than 20% are not using, but that's expected. But, since majority of you are using computer vision, I'll sort of pace my presentation accordingly. I got maybe 16, 17 slides in this presentation. I've been active, just a background about me before we jump in. I've been active in computer vision since 2014. I happened to write the first market report on computer vision. At that time, I was trying to do a startup. And so I've been industry insider as well as outsider, worked with many of the prominent AI companies in the area, including Wave Computing, ThinkEye, which is now Blaze, built a chipset. So deep into the whole chip and the vision ecosystem. And really lucky enough to be both analyst, entrepreneur, executive in a consulting role. So there is my profile, and if you want to reach me, you can always feel free to contact me. So since this COVID-19 has been raging, not a single conversation goes without COVID-19. And I thought I'll start by showing some of the new use cases that have emerged in past, well, less than 6 weeks actually. And it's amazing how fast the computer vision and AI community has adopted. So on the left, there is the infrared temperature. So FLIR is one of the top infrared companies that make sensors. And although they claim their sensors have certain level of accuracy, a lot of companies have incorporated that into their video analytics product suite. And I would not be surprised, if this becomes a standard feature in a lot of airports and crowded places. Especially you look for any anomalies in temperatures and you start to alert police or law enforcement or whoever medical personnel around you. that, hey, there is a potential COVID-19 patient, or things that you need to look into. So that's one use case that just emerged. The one on the right top is actually a picture from Pizza Hut from Malaysia. And anytime there is an anomaly, so in this case, he's using the sanitizer to wash his hands, it generates a flag. The clerk you see there, anytime that clerk touches the terminal with bare hand, it will generate alert. So a lot of use cases can be enabled just by modifying your software with existing setup. Robots on the left bottom are going to be there. So a lot of robots have been modified to become sanitizing robot. And there have been reports that drones have also been used to deliver medical supplies, in particular in the remote area. So last 6 or 8 weeks, there is this 4 use case, and it doesn't stop here. There is more, right? So the video analytics software has been used for social distance monitoring. The person detection is one of the very common features of video analytics. And what those boxes are showing is that they're calculating the distance. And anytime there people are too close, it's raising alert. Facial recognition with mask, very, very interesting use case, technically very challenging, but almost mandatory moving forward. And then there is the personal protective equipment detection, right? Where is the danger? Who is not wearing? Is there a medical personnel? So a lot of these use cases just emerged in last 6 weeks, or 2 months, if you will. And it just goes to show that how popular vision has become in our lives and where it can go from here. And since this presentation is all about market, I got a bunch of slides focusing on market, fairly high level presentation. And so, like Del said, let's try to make this a discussion. Try and show our faces. If we are shy, just speak up. You can always unmute yourself and ask me. And let's jump right in. So the vision market, and this number in 2018 is about $3 billion. When I started researching in 2015 or 2014, there were handful of companies, maybe 6 or 7, or maybe a dozen or so, that were creating computer vision products. So it's amazing to see, something that was in tens of millions to comes into billions in last 4 or 5 years. And it's not going to stop anytime soon. It's gonna, I think the prediction is like something like 33 billion in next 7 years. 33% growth rate, quite large by any means. And it's going to go everywhere. I got some slides that show where all is being used and the use cases. But there is not a single industry that has been left untouched by computer vision. So a bit of a history. Computer vision used to be, a DSP exercise, if you will. You could, look at image as a sequence of numbers in metrics, and you could do all kinds of digital DSP transformations and extract the information. So that is, what used to be the classic traditional computer vision, in which AI was not used. And a lot of technology has been around, starting with MNIST, back in the when Jan LeCun actually successfully introduced for US Postal Service. And even today, a lot of products are being shipped with classic computer vision. So, for example, smart cameras, they typically have a region. So, for example, if there is a use case, if a person has crossed a line or not, you can in theory draw a line and look for pixel changes on the left and right of that line. And if the pixel changes, within certain percentage, you can flag an alert. So that's what I would call a classic computer vision based alert system. Whereas AI system actually looks at the person who's going from left to right and recognizes the person. And so over the years, classic vision has found its footing into a lot of machine vision systems, but it's being replaced by deep learning or AI. And it's going to be that way for many years. In fact, the deep learning systems will make majority of the system, majority of the computer vision going forward. And that's taking computer vision into all kinds of industries. So these are about 25 industries that I track via Omedia, and all of them have certain uh, penetration depending on the applicability of technology, user awareness, business benefits, some of the prominent features that come into picture when buyers make decision. But if you look on the right, there are three common threads, if you will. There is the surveillance. Almost every sector needs a surveillance. In fact, surveillance market has been around for the last 20 years, and it's mostly been camera and a bunch of recorders sitting with a person monitoring that manually. Computer vision has enabled extracting information on that live video feed as it comes in. And so surveillance is a very common theme across all the industries where computer vision is being used. And, there are a lot of benefits in terms of monitoring the video 24/7 and a lot of different use cases. So I see surveillance being one of the most popular use case even moving forward. Analytics is the other area where a lot of verticals have adopted computer vision. So analytics deals with extraction of information that is more business related. So for example, let's say you have an entrance in a retail store. You can use computer vision to find out how many people are walking inside the store, how many people looked at the advertising console that you just put up. So a lot of analytic use cases, a lot of industries are utilizing that, and business analytics with computer vision is really emerging to be a new field. And then finally, mobile and devices, what we call as edge market. Everywhere we are surrounded by devices, starting from phones to tablets to security cameras to TVs, to vacuum cleaners, what have you. And so a lot of these devices are starting to support computer vision now, and there is going to be camera on every device the way I see it, and computer vision is going to go everywhere. So even with this COVID-19, I have not built a model, as to what the impact would be. But my guess is that at the worst, we would be flat. But I don't see any negative, downshift per se on the computer vision market moving forward. In terms of use cases,
Actually,
so yeah.
Anand, before you jump in there, can we just get a quick poll on what people are using in the audience so we can get a feel for the industries? So
Yeah.
let me
Sure.
launch this real quick. If you could just jump in and share which of these industries you're involved in. If it's not on the list, feel free to put it in other and then share it in the chat. What is here? Yeah, just if you hit other, just put your industry in the chat box. We got smart cities, satellite imagery, and industrial automation. So 5 more seconds and then I'll share the results of the poll with everybody. Fine-grained anomaly detection, horizontal platform targeting developers of CV. All right, so let's share the results of the poll. And here you'll see we've got 31% surveillance security, 15% autonomous vehicles, 12% media advertising, 12% health and medical, and then the others, 31%. Then I read through the list. We have industrial machine vision was one of the last ones. So thanks for sharing. I think we have a great cross section across a healthy set of industries. So good to know. But go ahead.
Yeah, very interesting. By the way, does anybody have any questions? Like I said, this is a fairly high-level presentation, so I'm going to keep going through these slides. But if you have any questions, just raise your hand or speak up. Okay, I'll keep going.
Maybe I can already. I'm not sure if I should already ask this, but it's a question around video surveillance. Like in this context, like working with government, like how does the whole video surveillance thing actually work out for like small startups or small group of people trying to build something? Like how does that actually play out? Would be interesting. But please go ahead, and then when you cover video surveillance, I would be interested to hear how you work or how one could actually work with governments on this thing.
Okay. In fact, this is a perfect time because I was going to talk about video surveillance anyway. So video surveillance is I would say the most prominent use case. Pretty much, all the 25 industries that I just showed you use it. And if I can get rid of this window here. So video surveillance, the reason it's become so popular is because there has always been an infrastructure for security. And there has been an industry, I think it's tens of billions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken. There are a lot of established companies who were selling video equipment and security equipment. So what computer vision company had to do is to really just build a software that would plug into that infrastructure and start generating results. Now, because computers were very easy computer vision is very easy to be customized for 24/7 usage. It can be enhanced. You can add new use cases. So all of that was very beneficial to the users. It was a question of the business model. We're going to charge you $500,000 upfront, and then you pay 20% maintenance. And that took some time because a lot of surveillance guys, except for the few big ones, didn't want to spend that kind of money. So that's where the SaaS model was born, and the business model was then modified that you just pay on a monthly basis rather than one-time upfront fee. And so that enabled a lot of these medium-sized businesses, in particular retail sector, to jump on the bandwagon. And then when smart city and all of that came, a lot of budget was available for installation of video camera and all of that. Terrorism actually helped quite a bit. A lot of cameras were installed. China has more cameras than the rest of the world, and so a lot of startups are born in China, focusing on video surveillance. So by a large percentage, it's the biggest use case where computer vision is being used in the worldwide market.
Yeah,
the second use case.
Manufacturers are in China, so they're definitely a manufacturer and consumer.
Yes, in fact, two big companies who became the first unicorns, billion-dollar valuation, came out of China, SenseTime and Face++. Both have become very, very big. So that, China is, by all means, it's a very big market for computer vision. The second most popular use case is machine vehicular object detection, identification, avoidance. And really all that is saying is that anything that moves, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you have to essentially look around you, identify the objects that are in front, and then lay out a course to go around. And so all the automotives and robots, anything that moves, vacuum cleaners and what have you, fall into that category. So this is a more of an edge market. This thing happens on the device. There is a very strict latency constraint, and the computation has to be done on the device. So a lot of automotive, robotics, some consumer companies, drones have actually. They have all of the drones have obstacle avoidance now. They go around the tree, and so second biggest use case for computer vision is really about navigation, if you will. Medical image analysis is the third biggest use case, and over the years there is a huge database in terms of your CT scans or ultraviolets or X-rays or what have you. And a lot of these this data is being used to essentially generate meaningful analysis that would be useful for further drug development. And a lot of companies are actively using computer vision to do the medical image analysis, and it's one of the top 5 use cases. AR, VR, a lot of computer vision, classic computer vision techniques, if you will. Things like image superimposition. There are some AI techniques that are coming into picture, especially when it comes to walking around or inputting your hand gestures into the AI headset. But a lot of AR is really all about image stitching and image enhancement, classic computer vision technique. So that's also one of the more popular computer vision use cases. The consumer and photography tools is another use case. Again, a lot of cameras are starting to ship with this. So things like, you can clean up the image, you can enhance the image, you can generate bokeh, you can do face identification. All of that is being done using AI or computer vision. Human emotion analysis. Emerging use case, select limited application, mostly around retail or security. But if you try to recognize emotions on your face and you try to correlate that, whether that person is angry or happy, happiness might mean that person is going to buy something. Angry means that he might just get angry and do something that that he's not supposed to do. So that is all starting to come in the picture, and this emotion analysis, it's only last couple of years has cracked into the top use cases. The static image recognition, classification, and tagging. This is one of the, I guess, classic use case for computer vision, if you will. Facebook was one of the first ones that actually started image recognition on everything that you upload on their server. And it's actively being used by Google as well as Facebook and all the guys to recognize all the images and generate the advertising content. And face recognition goes hand in hand with video surveillance. Essentially you use that to recognize a person and track that person. And so these are top 8 use cases. There are many more, but these are the ones where there is significant market traction, and a lot of applications are being built around these use cases.
Anand, I guess I wanted to get some feedback from the audience, because this is sort of a historical percentage, but with COVID and the impact on businesses, there's the hypothesis that surveillance, and it's sort of proven out in China where they're using surveillance they're investing a lot in using it for helping to reduce the COVID problem. I'm curious if other people are seeing this. Particular video surveillance and medical seem to get a lot of emphasis in this new environment that we're in. But I'm curious if people are seeing this in reality in business, that these two areas are getting a lot more attention these days than they have historically. So Lara, you're in the medical image space. You want to jump in and share anything that you've seen since COVID hit?
Sorry, hi everyone. Sorry, can you repeat your question? I missed the first half of it.
Yeah, so the COVID is impacting these percentages, or it's probably going to impact them. The question is, are you seeing additional business emphasis in the medical imaging analysis space and or video surveillance? But I guess I know you're involved in the medical image analysis space. I'm curious that the business impact of COVID on this area, or on the percentages.
Right. So, I mean, there's been definitely more emphasis on using machine learning to analyze X-rays, like chest X-rays or the CT scan, because that's one of the diagnostic tools that clinicians use. So automating it and increasing the accuracy in that domain is of value when people use the computer vision technologies. And then on the surveillance, as Anand mentioned, there's like a lot of interest in fever detection. We see it that is related to COVID-19. That was the first slide. So these are the two cases that I see that have accelerated in the past 8 weeks in particular.
And Moshe, you're involved in these spaces too. I was curious your perspective, and is the hypothesis proven out in business-wise that there's additional business activity in these areas, or have you seen other areas that are impacted?
Yeah, so actually we've seen sort of a mixed bag. We work a lot in medical device. So in the short term, there's a lot of nervousness in that industry because elective surgeries are down. But everybody understands that this is sort of a temporary thing. Yeah, there's a lot of talk for sure about X-ray analysis, detection of COVID in X-rays, a lot of data sets out there, and everybody's saying that they're doing it. So yeah, I definitely heard a lot of talk about that as well.
Yep. Anybody else have other things to share on that? Because there's a lot of talk about it. I'm curious what the real money flows are happening, because I know there's a lot of development going into it. I'm looking for, are there big government contracts for acquisition of face mask compliance devices, or is this all in a prelude to that happening?
Hey, I actually have some comments. I work for Dory. This is Rick Molakala. We've been basically developing vertical solutions on like a bespoke basis using our platform. So with COVID, it's actually given us a pretty good opportunity to land with something, right? So I've seen interest from secondary educations, mostly private schools and so on. They're debating whether they should open up in August or not. So they're looking for simple things like face mask detection, social distancing in their cafeteria and so on. The challenge really boils down to is really data sets, right? For a lot of these things, their environment's a little bit different. The cameras that they already have are, may or may not be suitable to extract that kind of data that we need to get the intelligence out. But at the same token, I have been talking to hospitals as well. And I think they're aware of basically looking at procurement options for AI. But if the conversation starts, but then it doesn't really even get to the stage of looking at pricing and so on. So I think it's a great opportunity to land with the product with organizations that have been potentially looking at AI. But I think with COVID, there's an opportunity to really sell your case and your capabilities. So I look at it as essentially landing at these organizations and talking to them with something, and then hopefully something will come out of it. And I think somebody mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of talk, and I don't want to say there's been a lot of talk. I mean, I would agree with that at some level, but I'm not sure if a lot of it is vaporware as well, right? I don't know if they're just folks are just putting together a bunch of slides and doing some digital marketing. But yeah, I mean, vertical solutions wise, I've maybe seen 2 or 3 that have shown demos online. Landing AI being one. They've got a really nice demo, and I trust they have a product already, but I don't know what the offtake is. But generally speaking, there's definitely more interest in automation and so on. Like I said, secondary schools, manufacturing now, working with a consulting firm, they're bringing us on board to put a presentation together for CV. But yeah, that's kind of like what my observations have been the last 3 weeks.
Great. Anyone else have observations to share? Don't be shy.
We keep going.
So I'll just share one more before we go. we do have operations in China, and there is real activity around COVID prevention in China using computer vision and video surveillance. And Anand mentioned SenseTime and MEGV, but there are literally hundreds of companies that are deploying, and the government's paying for it all. So the government is putting their money behind this technology and paying for smart city type deployments for managing this outbreak. And the expectation is in the US, there'll be a follow on, particularly in the business sector, retail and restaurants and different areas where they need to establish public trust again to deploy technologies to assist in that while COVID is still hot. So that's the reason for the question. But yeah, I expect these percentages to change during this outbreak.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Anand. Sorry.
All right, let's keep going.
Yep.
Okay, and then some more details on the markets. So those were the use cases. Which market is doing well? And these are the top 5 markets where computer vision products are selling in large quantities. Consumer, so a lot of cameras, a lot of consumer devices, toys, robots, vacuum cleaners, TVs, tablets, what have you. So huge market for computer vision. Retail, another big market for computer vision. So smart cameras, security purposes. Smart retail, so that's Amazon Go like stores that are appearing. A lot of startups have appeared. And then computer vision is also being used in NVRs and storage. So what you can do is you can use computer vision, extract foreground from your background, and or store the tags. So in essence, your storage needs go down when you use computer vision. And so a lot of companies are also selling products essentially that get coupled with NVRs and storage and help you minimize your storage requirements using computer vision. Advertising, another big market for computer vision. Ad insertion, content analysis. So where should you insert the ad by looking at the video that's playing, or even physical advertising for that matter. Where do you embed the camera so that you get the analytics and how many people looked at your ad, how many people were happy, how many people just ignored it, what was the reaction. So advertising is another industry where computer vision has become very prominent. Automotives, we all know all the hype surrounding self-driving cars. Although today the shipment is really in ADAS and L2, L3 features. So these are things like lane detection, automatic emergency braking, blind spot detection, and then some in cockpit monitoring is the other area where there is a lot of shipment today. So things like is the driver becoming drowsy? Are all passengers wearing their seatbelt? So all of that is being done by computer vision. And then L4, L5, we are a few years, away from that. But eventually, when we get there, we will see a huge uptick in computer vision market because a lot of that is driven by computer vision. And then healthcare, we talked about some of these. So a lot of R&D and medical image analysis is being done by computer vision. And then surveillance and analytics are other 2 use cases that are being actively deployed in different hospitals and healthcare institutions around the world. And things like fraud, right? So I read about a fraud when one person gave his insurance card and another person walked into doctor's office. Things like that, you can use computer vision to detect. So some very interesting use cases being used for computer vision in healthcare and other markets. The location of intelligence, right? Where do you run the computer vision algorithms? Where is AI located? Is another hot topic, if you will. Edge AI or edge intelligence, you read a lot about that. What edge intelligence is that you have a small device and you put your chipset on there and you all the processing there. So the places where you need it is really when you need real-time results. So navigation, for example, is one area where you have to have results right away. cost matters. So a lot of times, if you install something on premise or on the server, your cost goes up, and edge by definition means that something that's in high volume and high quantities, so the cost is low, and that would mean that chipset and the solution that you have has to be low cost. And then a lot of edge devices are simple to use. So for example, if you have a smart camera and you have computer vision, things like person detection on camera versus person detection on premise or cloud, it's much easier to install, to use that. And so again, that goes hand in hand with the low cost and real-time requirements. So the volume today on edge for computer vision is really coming from the camera companies who are in the security market, like Hikvision and Bosch. On-premise is all about having a computer on premise, and then you take these cameras and you connect it to your computer. And the trend overall is that you are starting to put GPU cards in your computer PC, and in doing so, you are able to get better accuracy than a camera. It's just intelligent camera. And then you can also scale. You can have 10, 100, 1,000 cameras going into one box. So a lot of video analytics companies like BriefCam, AnyVision, they're all using on-premise because you can take a piece of software. If you have a surveillance system, you just connect the video analytics software to that, and boom, there you go. And then cloud, Amazon, Microsoft, they all have their vision APIs, for example, recognition from Amazon. And they are really meant for scalability. So if you have a retail store and you have a location on East Coast and West Coast, and you want to analyze the video feed that's coming in, you connect that to the cloud, and then you generate all the results on the cloud. So obviously you have a lot more compute available, so you get better accuracy. You can do a lot of post-event processing, and you can do a storage. So you can store your video feed from months and months at a time, and you can review that later on. So really 3 different locations for intelligence, and 3 opportunities, if you will, for both computer vision as well as the hardware and software. You have to consider different aspects of what customers want, what users want, and then you have to customize your solution accordingly.
Yeah, before you go on, let's be great to get the input from the audience where people are implementing their computer vision. So I got a quick poll here. We can, where'd it go? Can you see the poll? All right, yeah. So just jump in here. Edge, enterprise, on-prem server or cloud service, where you're implementing computer vision. So just get a quick sample here so you can see how diverse it really is, and give another 10 seconds here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's share the results here.
About even, okay.
Yeah, so there we go. A good mix, as I expected. There's quite a diversity in the industry on how it's getting implemented, and there are major economic factors at work and where it shifts to. So stay tuned. It's changing by the moment.
Exactly.
All right, thanks everybody.
Yeah, and one of the interesting thing is that a lot of on-premise companies also make their software available on cloud, and so a lot of these vendors give you an option whether you want to run it on cloud as well as on the edge. Business models is another very, very interesting aspect if you're building a product and trying to sell into computer vision market, because I personally believe that AI and computer vision is going to bring a lot of changes in the way business is being done. And that's because the benefits, the business value add is really very industry or application specific. And if one model works for one industry, that doesn't mean that it's going to work in other industry. An example of that is that let's say you have a product that's meant for surveillance, and you want to sell that into a airport, and you want to sell that into a retail market. So airport and all the government institutions really are better off just giving you one-off big lump sum payment and owning that. Whereas retail guys don't want to part with that money upfront. And so, I've known of vendors who have a very, very similar product, essentially same product, customized for different verticals, but the business model is different. And so a lot of innovation happening. Software as a service is a very popular model. Technology licensing and royalty again has been around. One-time payment is really one-time upfront payment, and then you pay 20% royalty as you move forward. First top three I would say are the traditional models, and then product as a service. So what you have in product as a service, that you give complete infrastructure. So you give cameras, you give your box, you give your software, and then you charge all of that on a monthly basis. So it becomes your product as a service. Payment for compute resources. So another interesting model from Amazon and cloud guys. What they are doing is they're charging you per inference. So you don't pay, for your servers or compute elements. You pay for how much data you run. And it's very good, if you know how many inferences you have, or if you're just trying to test it out, or if you want to just, try different things. But it's, as you scale up, the bill increases exponentially, and so at which point you're better off going to your vendor and negotiating. But very, very innovative business model from cloud guys. I know Google is doing that, Amazon is doing that, and then pay as you go and services. We just talked about schools, for example, right? So schools don't really have a lot of budget. And so they might just pay you for cameras first, but then as you go along, they would want to add social distancing, followed by temperature detection. And so you actually charge them for services, and then you keep on adding new features. So a lot of different ways of monetizing the computer vision products. And what's driving this? I won't go through all of this. You're welcome to read this, while I talk. But really, this is really the beginning, in my opinion. The accuracy of computer vision is going to increase as we move along, and that's going to give rise to new use cases. Data is one of the biggest hurdle in enabling new use cases, but with this internet, we are getting more and more data. There is a whole range of companies appearing who can actually generate data for you. So that's going to make it easier. The prices of hardware are going to fall. There will be a need for safety and security, as evident from this COVID-19. We need to automate more. We need to reduce cost. And then there are government regulations, things like automatic emergency braking. The rear view camera is actually mandatory on cars now. So all of this is actually helping vision. And then there are venture capital, the money that comes in. Then there are open source libraries which make it easy to build new products. So it's a cycle, it just goes going back and forth. And computer vision, all of this is driving computer vision along with AI. I thought I'd put a slide on some of the algorithms that are popular. And again, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the algorithms that are frequently used in different devices or computer vision applications. So face detection and facial recognition. So detection is really different. It's all about how many people are there, whereas facial recognition is about who's there. So there are different models. Same thing with object detection and classification. What is there versus who is there, and then similarly path mapping and planning. So all of these algorithms match the use cases, if you will, that I showed you. But if somebody is actually building a product, what is key to note here is that your neural networks fall into one of these categories, and the complexity of the hardware underlying really drives the need for your hardware and software. And since we talked about the vision, I thought I would throw a slide about chipsets. So there has been a lot of noise being made by all these chipset companies. All kinds of architectures are emerging. these are four prominent architectures that are out there: CPU and DSP, GPU, FPGA, and ASICs. And CPU, GPU, FPGAs have been there for a long time. All of them are customized or enhanced, if you will, to run vision and AI applications. And each one come with their pros and cons, if you will. ASIC is an area where there is a lot of startup activity. In fact, about 100 companies that have appeared, they're all focusing on ASIC. And the biggest difference between ASIC and the rest of the pack is that ASICs are customized to run AI. Their compute elements are optimized for either power or performance or latency or throughput, depending on what you need. So ASIC is really application-specific implementation. All of them are doing very well. GPU, NVIDIA is really the number one in terms of chipset sales. Although GPU, CPU, and FPGA are very generic architectures, if you will. And so, it's interesting to see. It will be interesting to see in the long run where ASICs end up, because ASICs are really optimized for edge or on-premise or cloud, depending on where you are running your application. But a lot of activity in the chipsets. All of these are very crucial to the success of computer vision, because all of that really depends on your neural networks, and chipset is really what accelerates them. Lot of challenges again. The chipsets, as I mentioned, continue to be challenged because the NNs are increasing in complexity at a much faster rate than what chipsets are able to provide, and Moore's law is actually slowing down. So there is a fundamental rethink going on in the chipset industry as to how you customize them for AI acceleration. Model lifecycle management is a very new field, if you will. Let's say you take a model for computer vision to detect a person, and by definition, that model tends to drift over a period of time, person ages or background changes. So you have to essentially keep on retraining that model to adapt to changes. And the infrastructure, where you actually retrain the model and deploy it, and then keep on repeating that, does not exist today, or at least it's in very infancy. So that there is going to be some activity there moving forward in terms of startups and new applications. The software development tools, so except for NVIDIA and Intel, maybe rest of the world, I would give them maybe 6 or 7 in terms of out of 10 where they stand in terms of software development tools. So there is a need for IP and software optimization. And that really boils down to the time to market, right? If the software tool is not mature, then it takes longer to build the application. And so that has been one of the difficult challenges for a lot of startups, is that by the time they delivered on the promises, 2 years had gone, and so they had to suffer in valuation. Thankfully, not very many companies have gone bust in vision yet, but we'll see what happens with this COVID-19. And then again, expertise, always an issue, very advanced, very cutting edge field. So, even though there are graduate programs, you can only produce so many graduates, right? So that will be the challenge.
Before you leave that one, almost 3/4 of this audience is active in computer vision development. It'd be great to share where they're seeing the biggest problems in computer vision. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here. If you could share just your biggest computer vision business problems, and the answers are real-time performance, accuracy, corner cases, data set, compute costs, or talent, or other. And if there is other things you'd like to share, please enter it into the chat box. So data sets taking a lead, accuracy is coming up neck and neck. It's a race. Give it another 10 seconds here, and then we'll share the results.
Okay, almost there.
All right, great. Thanks everybody. So we'll end that, share results. So we're looking at 52% data sets. So data sets, the clear challenge with these machine learning things, both the cost of acquiring them, but also making sure that they're quality enough to use. That's a well-known problem, and it's good to see the confirmation from other people that are using it that this is a challenge for everyone. So, I think everyone's feeling that.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody.
All right. Yeah, so let's keep going. We have used most of our time, so I'll go quickly through some of these slides. But so the logos I have there, these are all what we call unicorns. They all have got billion plus valuation or close to it. But the FaceTime, Face Plus Plus, which is really Megui, SenseTime, very big in China. Trax is the first unicorn in video analytics. Avigilon, another video analytics company that got acquired by Motorola for $1 billion. Drive.ai, acquired by Apple. Mobileye got $12 billion valuation from Intel. DJI, the number one drone manufacturer. So the top two are AnyVision, and then this is Magic Leap. Sadly, they are not doing all that great, but still they have billion plus valuation. They have raised 2.5 billion till date. So a lot of success stories in computer vision. And then the question is, where do we go from here, right? What's happening? And so these are some of my opinions based on what I've seen. So first of all, I don't think the market has really caught up to incorporate multiple sensors. So for example, how do you combine LiDAR and photo and maybe even ultrasound or radar? And how do you build neural networks to essentially combine all that and increase accuracy? How do you use sound with that? How do you use 3D? So all of them are very open questions out in the research world as well as commercial world. Contextual understanding, right? So if a person is walking, a child is walking in the mall and is crying, how do you know that child is not lost? What does it take to understand that? So a lot of work needs to be done. Edge-centric computing. So although we have chipsets and devices that are incorporating computer vision, their accuracy and usefulness is still very limited. So a lot of innovations need to happen before edge-centric computing becomes pervasive. And then more industry-specific customization. So all the companies that are selling or doing well are really very horizontal companies. A facial recognition technology for let's access control is very different from what you would need for facial recognition in smart city. And so in time, we're going to see some industry-specific customization, and I think there is a scope for startups and companies to emerge there. And we'll probably see a different ecosystem, which is very industry-specific. So to summarize, computer vision is really it's causing a disruption in the world. It has emerged, and I remember in my first report back in 2014. I called computer vision as a rookie quarterback, and world has a lot of expectation, and really it has, computer vision has really come of age since then. There are over 4,000 companies in inception, which is NVIDIA's funding program, and so that number itself, speaks because there's a lot of activity happening. AI is really the key enabling technology, so a lot of computer vision and AI will go hand in hand in the future. And I think we are still very early in the game. A lot of innovations are going to happen. We have a long ways to go. And so computer vision, in my opinion, is going to be really the killer technology going forward. So with that, I'll stop and take any questions.
Well, before we get into the questions, I want to do one last quick poll, and then we'll jump into the Q&A. And that's just to get your feedback on future events like this, whether the focus is go-to-market, ecosystem partnerships, or tools and technology. So just to sample the audience and see where your priorities lie, see what you're most interested in, because we're trying to meet your needs and bring you more great speakers to address your needs going forward. So we'll give it another 10 seconds here, and then we'll jump into Q&A with Anna. And while pause going on, I really want to thank Anand for leading this discussion. I think the business opportunities of computer vision are exciting and dynamic, very, very, very dynamic right now. And it's great to have your insights on how this is changing and how we can adjust our business strategies to make money off this. So thanks again. And I'm going to close the poll and share the results. And here we go. 77% go to market and 45% tools and technologies. Great. Thanks for sharing. So please feel free to open your mic and ask any questions.
Hi, Anand. Thanks a lot for giving this presentation. Very, very grateful for doing the work that you did. I have a question. So, like, I come from the autonomous industry, and I'm looking for different opportunities and to move forward after the COVID situation. So, I've not been furloughed or anything. It's just that I don't see for the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, this automotive market actually getting more and more developed or anything progressing that much. Because obviously in 2018, there was a big bust, all the valuations fell, and it's constantly falling even without COVID situation. So I have personally decided to pivot into a different industry. Where in all the machine learning and all of the skills are required, and then you basically just take a different application. But I'm curious to see, like, what are your thoughts about the autonomous enabling technologies of not per se like the whole entire technology stack, because I think that's a very complicated problem. But what do you think about all the small business and small computer vision startups working to enable autonomous technologies? What do you feel about them?
So indoor navigation actually is a very big business opportunity. So because of COVID-19, the no-touch delivery, right? There is a slogan that's being used by many companies now. And what does that entail, right? So no-touch delivery might have a robot that goes inside the kitchen and brings your pizza out. It might have a robot that carries your pizza last mile. It might have a robot that cleans your interior. It might have a robot that fumigates. It might have a robot that takes, the seizures from one room to other in a medical setting. So a lot of these robots, I think, are going to appear in the near future. And they all are going to need some sort of indoor navigation capability because, you cannot really use GPS or anything external. So any algorithm that really maximizes that potential, I think for a small company or a small group of people is probably a good start. And then you can always climb vertically from there into all these machines or build a chipset solution or optimize it. But I think that is going to be very, very interesting space to watch in the near future.
Interesting idea. Thanks, Anand.
Yeah.
Another question, apart from the survey that you ran before, do you guys have any information on market breakdown of end devices versus cloud, and also about full vertical solutions versus enabling technologies, how that market actually breaks down?
So I have a lot of data on end markets, a lot of data on devices that are shipping. Vertical solution tends to be a little more complicated. The only vertical that's sort of self-contained right now is machine vision, if you will, because the cameras tend to be very, very specific and algorithms are very, very specific for QA. But rest is all generally jumbled. Retail, anybody that sells into retail also sells into hospitals and also sells into financial institutions. But yeah, if you want to contact me offline, I'm happy to share what I have with you and we can talk more.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? I apologize for running over. I appreciate everyone staying over to stay with us, and thanks everyone for showing up. And
thanks a lot, Dale. But I do have a question. I wonder, do we have time or?
Yeah, go ahead. I have time to.
I'm sorry. I think you were doing your closing speech, but I have Anand here, so I can really ask my questions. Thanks a lot, Dale. Anand, like, I mean, also like another interesting aspect that I was really thinking about is how do we enable, I think somebody in the audience also mentioned this, like how do we actually enable the current developers to be able to actually extract values from these algorithms that are previously developed. So what is your feeling around, what do you think is the next thing around like building a proper like platform that can actually enable these licensing business model to actually thrive? Like, because this is, I mean, I'm thinking of many use cases in satellite imagery where I can imagine a team to take many, many months or years to even perfect a single algorithm. And then to actually license that could be super interesting business model for satellite imagery. But what do you think about, I mean, in general, what has your experience been in licensing algorithms? How big is the market? How easy it is to actually acquire developer community? And what are your thoughts around this business model especially?
So one good thing about AI is that companies are actually willing to pay for a good algorithm or good neural network that gives them the accuracy they need. And so that's a good news. The bad news is that you have to find somebody who's willing to give you the data, and then only you can build your application or algorithm around it. And so it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. Big companies are able to go to big institutions, R&D institutions, for example, and they grab their data there and they start. So if you are going to build algorithm, I would recommend stay on the cloud as much as possible, because it's easier to scale. It's easier to find community that's already versed. But even for getting the developers, it's always chicken and egg, right? You need to show them something so they can monetize, and to be able to monetize, you have to have something that's already baked. But again, if you build an application that runs on GPU or CPU, something that's scalable and has opportunity to monetize for different, developers, assuming that you have enough customer traction, I think that there might be some opportunities there.
Cool. And how would you then, like, I mean, this chicken and egg problem that you mentioned, for bigger companies, it's much easier to solve, of course. So what would your advice be to solve this problem for like something like a really, really small group of people? Like, how would you acquire proprietary data sets?
Yeah, I mean, you just try to find somebody who's willing to champion you within their organization.
Okay.
That's really the name of the game. That could be your uncle for many cases, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for all your questions. The question came through the chat, and I'll just verbalize it. The video of this meeting will be posted on the Aviate community website at member.aviate.ai. So if you missed anything or want to review something, it'll be there, as well as the slides. So thanks everyone for your participation, and look forward to seeing you again soon.